Hello, you're alright. Nectar here, and today I'm going to be talking about the artist Billie Zangewa and bell hooks and the love that Black women have for one another. So let's just get right into it. Billie Zangewa is a textile artist based in Johannesburg who grew up in Malawi. She uses raw silk and embroidery to hand-stitch portraits that are striking in the beauty of the figures, her use of negative space, and the way that she unites the fragmented. Zangewa says silk chose her because it is a byproduct of transformation. And as we know, transformation gives way to evolution. Zangewa's work is narrative. She draws from her own life and depicts life as a Black woman through scenes that are intimate snapshots of everyday moments. Zangewa's decision to portray scenes that feel familiar is a common practice of showing the beauty that exists in the mundane aspects of everyday life. Her work also engages what she calls daily feminism, through highlighting women in domestic scenes. These tapestries showcase that the quote-unquote woman's work that occurs in the home is integral to the progression and well-being of society. To call upon Kalamu Ya Salam and his reflections on Black women, the work is a showcase of how our women keep our skies from falling. For Zangewa, her work falls into the category of the personal as political. The term, the personal is political, has had a long history of residence amongst Black women who knew that their personal experiences with racism, sexism, and classism both influenced the politicization of equity and democracy and were influenced by the oppressor's desire to deny such progress. The personal as political is a phrase deeply embedded into the livelihood of Black women and exists throughout Black feminism. From Sojourner Truth, to Zora Neale Hurston, to Audre Lorde, to Simone Lee, to women on Twitter, countless Black women have engaged in what it means to have your life be politicized across a variety of spectrums. Zangewa's intention is to give a voice to the lives of Black women through the sharing of her everyday intimate life. She does this with the hope that Black women can be seen and heard. The aspect of intimacy is very pronounced in the work. It is often shown through motherhood, for instance, through her reading her son a bedtime story. And it's also shown through moments that we experience individually of internal reflection. Moments of self-comfort, self-care, and self-doubt. Moments of quiet and recentering. Zangewa's most recent exhibition takes her commitments to intimacy and Black womanhood and articulates them in an interesting realm. The title of the exhibition is Soldier of Love. It opened as her first sole exhibition with Galerie Templon in one of their Paris locations on March 14th and continues through June 6th, this Friday, where you can view it online. Zangewa gave the exhibition this title because, in her words, she is a soldier of love. She states,
I think that in this difficult time that we live in, there's a lot of transgressions that we commit against each other, a lot of suffering that we inflict on each other all over the world. I'm a soldier of love because in this climate that we live in, a lot of people are jaded and they don't believe in love. So that's why I use the word soldier, because it's a fight for love.
I heard Zangewa make this statement, and it brought me to the prolific and incredible bell hooks in her essay, Love as the Practice of Freedom. Hooks begins the essay saying, without love, our efforts to liberate ourselves and our world community from oppression and exploitation are doomed. To briefly contextualize and summarize, she talks about how many efforts for freedom are self-centered, such as when white women scream "end sexism" and then in the same breath unnecessarily call the police on Black women. So for Hooks, having an ethic of love means that instead of focusing on individual concerns of progress, we need to care about the oppression, domination, and exploitation of others and commit ourselves to the act of serving one another in order to achieve what she calls a collective transformation of society and an end to the politics of dominations. She ends the essay saying, the moment we choose to love, we begin to move towards freedom and to act in ways that liberate ourselves and others. That action is the testimony of love as the practice of freedom. Now, Zangewa also believes that we need more love in this world to stop the offenses we commit against one another. However, to practice love for one another, there first must be compassion. And sadly, compassion towards Black women outside of the compassion we have towards one another is often scarce. As Malcolm X has famously said in 1962, the most disrespected, unprotected, and neglected person in America is the Black woman. And sadly, this still remains true, especially as we think about Breonna Taylor. May God continue to rest her soul, and the tragic death in her struggle to grant her justice. To share her story again, on March 13th, the Louisville Metro Police Department used a no-knock warrant that was potentially issued using false information to forcibly enter Breonna's home at around 1 a.m. Because the police did not announce themselves, and because they did not respond when Breonna and her boyfriend, Kenneth Walker, tried to ask who it was, the couple assumed that they were being robbed. When the police did enter wearing plain clothes, Walker fired his gun in self-defense. Upon him firing his shot, the police then shot at least 20 times into the house. Breonna was shot 8 times, and those 8 shots ended this young woman's life. Now, even with how fatally negligent this murder was on the behalf of the police, and how tragically this young woman's life was ended, until the FBI publicly announced to investigate this case this week, Breonna's murder that took place over 2 months ago has received almost no coverage in the mainstream media. She has not received nearly as much coverage as the deaths of George Floyd and Ahmaud Arbery. And I say this, and I want to make clear, not to say and mean that the murders of George and Ahmaud should have received any less coverage than they did. However, I do say this to mean that Breonna's case not receiving as much attention is misogynoir clearly at play. It is another case of the Black woman being neglected. The media in this country has decided that this young Black woman's life does not matter as much as these Black men. They have deemed that Breonna does not deserve as much mourning and outrage and justice, and that it's a constant occurrence when it comes to the lives of Black women, and it is one that is wrong. If bell hooks is right and love is the practice of freedom, then I myself don't know how to receive love from anyone who only granted it to me after my voice became hoarse asking for respect. The act of Zangewa making this work is a reflection of how even when Black women do not receive this love from others, we make sure to sustain love for one another. We love one another when the system fails us. We love one another as hype women. We love one another as support systems. We've been loving each other sometimes even before we know how to love ourselves. And it is the work of artists like Zangewa that embodies the hope that one day it's not so much of an anomaly for others to love us as well. Zangewa beautifully stitches this love together in her work. We live textured lives, and her act of weaving multiple pieces of fabric together is reminiscent of how we as individuals are weaved together by our days, our memories, our aspirations, and the company that we keep. Zangewa's labor of hand-stitching these moments together speaks to the effort it takes to build connection. Sometimes it's long and tenuous, and sometimes it flows seamlessly, but it's always necessary. Her labor shows us the vulnerability that love of self and love of one another require, and the empowerment that both reward. She is a soldier of love, and her work, like the work, thoughts, and prayers of so many Black women, is a labor of love. Thank you so much, everyone, for listening. Please share your thoughts with me. I would so greatly appreciate hearing them and having a conversation with you. Take care and be well. Stay safe.